A thread by Carlos Osuita. Nobody knows how anything works. Their brains are rotted by TV, movies, computer games, and social media. I have to explain everything to those intent on blaring their butt ignorance to my face. So I will. The Daniel Prude Medical Examiner Report. You don't know the difference between a coroner and a medical examiner, do you? Coroners are elected lay people who often do not have professional training, while medical examiners are appointed and have board certification. In a medical specialty, you don't know the 5 classifications of death, do you? Accident, suicide, homicide, execution by the state, undetermined. Some states classify execution as homicide. Let me quote from a long article about North Carolina law. Quote, when a medical examiner identifies a manner of death as homicide, they are not drawing a legal conclusion. When a death is not from disease, homicide is simply one of the 5 permissible classifications of death. It is to be emphasized that the classification of homicide for the purposes of death certification is a neutral term and neither indicates nor implies criminal intent, which remains a determination within the province of the legal processes. Death due to positional restraint induced by law enforcement personnel or to chokeholds or other measures to subdue may be classified as homicide. In such cases, there may not be intent to kill, but the death results from one or more intentional, volitional, potentially harmful acts directed at the decedent without consent, of course. Further, there is some value to the homicide classification toward reducing the public perception that a cover-up is being perpetrated by the Death Investigation Agency. See the problem? When the public is but ignorant, facts don't matter. A guy even said that in my last thread. They reject reality and argue with me from another planet. They had his face pressed into the road. Lie. They did push-ups on his chest. Lie. They did push-ups on his head. Lie. They should have offered him support instead of fighting with him. Medical examiner report, combative behavior, and PCP intoxication. Hey, let's change the subject. It wasn't a lethal overdose of PCP. I never said it was. He had an infected heart, infected lungs, and severe infection-induced brain herniation. 2 were clinical histories, meaning not caused by restraint. His myocarditis, heart muscle inflammation, was caused by undetected infection or drugs. Period. Watch the video. He was breathing until he suffered cardiac arrest. He had bronchopulmonary pneumonia, not aspiration pneumonia, caused by infection. He did not choke on anything. Since you don't know anything, you're bombarding me with butt ignorance and lies. Don't bother. I know far more than you. Look at the medical examiner's report. Manner of death. Quote, the cause of death is the specific injury or disease that leads to death. The manner of death is the determination of how the injury or disease leads to death. There are 5 manners of death: natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and undetermined. Manner of death, how the cause of death came about. The 5 manners of death: natural, accidental, suicidal, homicidal, and undetermined. A gunshot wound, cause of death, may have been accidental, suicidal, or homicidal. For example, only deaths from disease are natural. A final point. Your own manner of political death is suicide. The cause of your political death is violent delusions. Addendum. Proning. Outcomes of use of force followed with prone restraint. Journal of Forensic Medicine, research article Lassoff et al. J. Forensic Med, 2017. Study location and population. The San Diego Sheriff's Organization. Sworn staff operate in the field setting covering approximately 4,200 square miles with a population in San Diego County of 3.2 million people. The SDSO also operates in the county's 6 jail detention facilities that collectively have an average daily census in excess of 5,000 inmates and over 100,000 bookings a year. Over the 12-month study period, the SDSO had 524,427 documented subject encounters, of which 2,431.0046% resulted in use of force being utilized. Of these use of force incidents, 1,535, 63.1% patients ended up being placed in a prone restraint position. Conclusion. Use of force incidents commonly result in individuals placed in a prone restraint position. Through our large population, we noted no fatalities of individuals placed in a prone restraint position. Likely, there are numerous factors that place an individual in police custody at risk for sudden death, including a history of mental illness, underlying heart disease, the presence of excited delirium syndrome, and drug and alcohol intoxication. Future research should focus on high-risk populations, including those suffering from drug intoxication, heart disease, obesity, and chronic lung diseases. Before you start screeching, that was only in San Diego, but this describes Daniel Prude perfectly. Quote, likely there are numerous factors that place an individual in police custody at risk for sudden death, including a history of mental illness, underlying heart disease, the presence of excited delirium syndrome, and drug and alcohol intoxication. These are facts. Your narratives are false. That's just reality.